Hello, everyone. Welcome to another recording of Elevate Your Brand. I'm Chris Anderson, your host, and super excited. Again, like always, I say it probably, you guys probably get tired of hearing me say get excited for our guests, but we just truly are blessed to have some of the best come on the show to share their knowledge with you for free to help you, elevate your life and your business so you can build the life you want and the life you love. So today's no different. Today, we have Christine Nicholson on the show today. She is a multi-award winning business mentor who, specializes in the exit and succession planning for business owners and their teams. So we're really excited to have Christine on. Christine, welcome to Elevate Your Brand today.
Hi, thank you. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys might hear Christine's over in the UK. Right? I get that right? You can say UK. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Although if you're a purist, I'd say I'm English.
English. Okay.
Yeah. And if you were talking to a Scots person, they would be Scottish.
Scottish. Okay. We might make sure we differentiate for sure over there. But so, just to kind of start, we all, heard of the Queen's passing and the transition of power there. And, it's just a crazy thing because all my life, I've seen the Queen over there and I'm sure everyone over there, like, it's just such a huge loss. Yeah, like, it's just crazy how long she's been in power and how she, presented herself through all those years.
And I'm very lucky because I've worked for the royal family twice.
Oh, wow.
And I've served in the military, so I'm a veteran.
Oh, wow.
So I've had that experience. And actually, when you think about it, with the Queen's passing, never has succession planning been more in the media.
That's true.
It's literally the minute she draws her last breath, it's the Queen is dead, long live the King. The succession is there, and he's spent his entire life planning for it.
That's a great point. I when I mentioned that, I wasn't even thinking in that direction, but it's so true. And we think about, like, even here in the States personally, like estate planning, planning for, that day, because we're all going to die. Unfortunately, it's the incomes first of all. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess, with that, that plan, has been in progress probably since she became the Queen, right? So they already had it. They planned it from the very beginning.
Yeah, succession in the royal family is thousands of years of tradition, and you are literally born into knowing exactly what your role is. Yeah. And if you think about the Queen, she wasn't born to be the Queen.
Right.
She was the King's niece, and it was only when the King made the decision that he didn't want to do this anymore. And constitutionally, that's a really tough decision. Because it is something you are born into. Then, his brother became king, which meant that she automatically became in the line of succession. So she knew from the day that the king stepped down and her father became king, she already knew what her life plan would be.
Wow.
And that's and 70 years of service. I mean, wow, she's just amazing. Amazing service. So, and I went to the funeral. Okay. And it was just extraordinary. 2.5 million people on the streets of London, and you could have heard a pin drop.
I can imagine. Extraordinary. Man. It's definitely, it's historical. As sad as the passing is for anyone, but just historical moment, just from where she came from and what she did, and it's just amazing just what she accomplished. But succession planning is so important, because if not, it's just kind of chaos, without knowing what to do. Same in families, like, if something happened to me, like, what's the steps, what needs to happen, and same in business too. And I think a lot of people, and that's what we're going to dive into, when you're building a business, you need to start with the end in mind. Because yes, you could keep going forever until you pass, but then what? Or what is your end goal? Is it to sell? Is it to merge? So these are all important questions to think about, and I think a lot of business owners don't think about it until it's too late, and then it's too late. So why is it so important in the business setting? We talked about life, so why now is succession planning so important when you're starting a business?
So I'm going to answer this in a slightly unusual way, because there are two really sad things that I hear. And one is, yeah, I'm starting to run my business down now because I want to retire in a couple of years. And I'm like, oh,
You
what
spend
do you
so
mean
much
you're running
time.
it down? You spent, however many years
Yeah.
building up, and the sheer effort, like, like Sisyphus pushing that stone up the hill. You do all that effort, and now you're just going to let it drift away.
Mm.
So not recognizing the value because you haven't done any succession planning or any exit planning. So that's one really sad thing, and that's why succession and exit planning is important.
Mm-hmm.
Because the other sad thing that I hear is, well, the business owner's died. Now what do we do?
Yeah.
And they've died. The family have got no income because they were reliant on the business owner's income, and now they've also got a business to manage that they're completely ill-equipped to manage because the business owner was such a key part of it. I mean,
Mm.
the central core part of the running of the business. No one else knows how to do it. So I've just lost my loved one. I've now
Mm.
lost my source of income, and I've now got a business that I don't know how to run. And that is that. I mean, again, that's tragic because
Mm.
there's no space for any kind of grieving, or the grieving gets in the way. And if a business owner either dies, becomes incapacitated, or suffers from some kind of disease that stops them working, the business is likely, if they are working in the day-to-day of the business, that business is more likely to be insolvent within 12 months, which is, again, it comes back to the first sad thing, which
Mm-hmm.
is you spend all that effort building it.
Yeah.
Why don't you just build it and then shore it up behind so it doesn't roll backwards on you? And that's the bit about planning.
Yeah.
Because I do hear, oh, I'm never leaving my business. And I'm
Yeah. Okay.
thinking, do you
Yeah.
want to put some money on that? Because
Right.
you're definitely leaving your business. It's
For
just a
sure.
matter of when and how. So do you want to leave it when you choose?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you just going to leave it to fate?
Yeah. And I think that's so true. Yeah. We lose a fate, we're going to be in a world of hurt. But yeah, it's just, that's crazy. I'm just thinking about mine, and, Elevate's been, we're kind of on 1 year of Elevate, which has been amazing. And I just can't think, like, just letting it dwindle in the future, like 20, 30 years down the road, 10 years, whatever it is, that it'd be like, just to my heart, like all that work, and it just goes, no thanks. So, for those starting out, they have this idea, they're trying to create a business, maybe they're making, under 1,000 a month, maybe 1,000 a month right now, they're early.
Yeah.
Is that still a good time to start planning for the end?
Oh, yes. It's the best time. The problem is that you're spending all of your mental energy on getting your customer and then getting them to pay. So you
Mm-hmm.
get the customer, then you service the customer, and you make sure that the customer pays you.
Yeah.
And even if you only did 30 minutes a week of just the basic stuff that makes your business more resilient,
Mm.
and never more so if you're in business with someone, because it's a bit like getting married. You have the early honeymoon days, and
Yeah.
some people go through 20 years of honeymoon. Don't get me wrong, before they wake up and think, I don't want to be in business with you, or I want out and you don't, so now
Yep.
what happens? So
Mm.
actually having those conversations fairly early on about what might happen, and I'll come back to what I call my 4 horsemen of the business owner's apocalypse.
Okay.
Death,
Yeah.
death, disease, disability, and divorce. 4 things that come and happen to you. You don't particularly plan them,
Yeah.
mostly,
Yeah.
and they can devastate you. So right at the very beginning, it's really worth figuring out what happens to you and your business if any of those things happen.
Mm.
And it's really simple. Get
Yeah.
a shareholder agreement in place if you've got a business partner.
Mm.
Make sure that you've got a control plan in place for who would take over and what they would do if something was to happen to you. Please have a will. Even if you're not right, if you're listening to this, you haven't got a business, but you're thinking of going into business, just get a will.
Yeah.
Honestly, a will takes away all of the pain of your family figuring out what on earth they're going to do if you were to die.
Yeah.
And those are just some of the basics. And then the next thing I would always say to people when you're starting up is, when you start to employ people, start to think about how you can hand over control of things in a way that allows your business to give consistent service to your clients. And that's just about getting the right people, doing the right things at the right time for the right reason.
Yeah.
And those things actually should be innate in the business.
Yeah.
But most people don't really think about them and therefore don't do them.
No, yeah, I agree. And this is something, you know, I've been thinking about more just in personal life and with business. Like, okay, we need to start setting that up, you know, for the end. No, we don't have a partner yet. Of course, that could always change. You can always bring someone on. Why is it important to have that shareholder agreement in place if you have a partner?
So most people, and I've done this a couple of times, badly. so pin your ears back, guys,
Yeah.
because this is definitely a case of do what I say, don't do what I do. Okay. But right at the very beginning, you're so excited about the opportunity and the idea, and you're generally like, oh God, I can't believe I've got someone else who thinks like this about stuff. But so you decide to form the company, and generally you go in with a 50-50 shareholding, which generally means, well, if we're a 50-50 shareholder, then got to be 50-50 decision making. It doesn't have to be like that. And then, you know, we're probably both going to be working in the business because, you know, let's face it, unless we chuck money in, which is traditional shareholder way, we're actually putting our time, effort, and sweat into it.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get paid 50-50. Now, usually it's not too far down the track that you find that one person is putting a whole load more effort in than the other. And it might be that one person just has to work harder at their thing, because that's the thing that at the time is most important to the business. But equally, I mean, I've been in a business partnership where I was putting in quite a lot of the effort versus
Oh, yeah.
big effort.
Macro to micro. Yeah.
Absolutely. So being paid equally is just not what's going to work. So shareholder agreement says this is about the ownership, and it's a clear blue sky between this is the job that I do in the business, because that's an employment contract.
Okay.
And then there's what do you do as directors? So how do you control the day-to-day decision making of within the business, which has usually been delegated from the shareholders.
Okay.
The shareholder agreement will also stipulate, or it should do, will stipulate what happens if something happens to one or more of you. So the last thing that most business partners want to do is find that their business partner has died and they're now in business with their business partner's spouse or children, or worse, some other being that they've never had anything to do with. So it's about what happens to, you know, so basically what's going to happen to my 50% if I'm not around, and what's going to happen to you and your 50% if I'm not around.
Okay.
And it's having those tough conversations, you know, being able to say when you're all happy and excited, like, please don't, if you leave this business, then there ain't no way that I'm going to be in business with your wife or your husband or your children.
Right.
So making it clear what's going to happen then.
Yeah. So you take that agreement and go back kind of like what you said with your 4 horsemen of business apocalypse and go, so, okay, so now, you know, John Doe, if you die, this is what's going to happen. Or if I die, this is what's going to happen. If you have a disease and can't work or whatever, this was for both of us. And you just kind of go down there and have like, you know, a tripwire for each of those kind of things.
Absolutely.
That gets the ball rolling.
Including when you're all happy at the beginning and you're all excited, it's great. But what happens if one of you falls out of love with the business, falls in love with something or someone else, and wants to go and chase that thing?
Yeah.
So they can stay a shareholder by all means, but they're now not working in the business, and do they still expect all the dividends? But so if someone does decide to go away, are you going to allow them to be a shareholder without being actively involved in the business? Or are you going to want to have a mechanism for valuing the business so that each of you could buy each other out depending on who wants to make that decision?
Right.
And having the valuation mechanism, having the terms on which that buyout happens right at the very beginning, means that later on if you do fall out, or, you know, should the worst thing happen, because, you know, it is more likely to have, you know, a bad thing while you're still around, but being incapacitated is much more likely to happen. Then it means that there's no argument then, because the rules are already set. You know, you're not making them up when one person might be in a slightly stronger position than the other. And which means that there's a level of fairness that comes in. Well, you make the deal when you're in a good place and you're competent to do so.
Yeah.
Not when you're perhaps worrying about. So here's a bad situation. One of my clients, his wife was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And it's like, last 6 months with my wife, dealing with day-to-day firefighting. I know what I'm going to choose, and the wife's going to win because I've only got 6 months with her. I'll come back to that if it's still around. So being able to deal with that kind of thing. Sadly, exit and succession planning is a bit like life assurance. Nobody wants to think that they want it. And the big trigger when when business owners start to think about exit and succession planning is usually they get to my age, they're in their 50s, and one of their friends dies, and they think, "Whew, didn't realize I didn't have that long." And it's a little trigger, you know, that'll be the thing that gets them all of a sudden doing fitness, dieting, and buying life assurance, and making sure they've got, you know, making sure the house is done, you know, finishing all those jobs that have been waiting for 20 years, putting money into the kids' college fund, all of those kind of things suddenly come very sharply to the front.
Yeah, I think, and it's a great point. If you're going into business, if you're starting, if you're listening to this, everybody, and you do have a partner, I think it's definitely something to have early on, a clear understanding of these possibilities and what happens. And, you know, here in the States, you can find a small business lawyer that can help you walk through those, get things in place. People like Christine and what they do, they help you set these up. So it's worth the investment, and the steps and the time to get that ready, to get that in place. So then you can kind of just review it every now and then, instead of, you know, rushing around at the last moment when emotions are flying everywhere and things have changed. So I think it's super, especially if you're having a partner, I think it just adds a different dynamic to what you have to plan for sure. Now, if you're a solo entrepreneur, you know, you're bootstrapping, you're getting this thing on your own. Do you still need a shareholder plan if someone was to come in? Is that something you think about, or do you wait until you have a partner come in?
No, you need an exit plan. And that is just a case of what happens if I can't work in my business. So actually having an exit plan for unplanned events, and then actually having an exit plan for planned events. And a lot of business owners don't realize they've got a huge amount of choice. So when I said right at the very beginning, the saddest thing I hear is when people say to me, "Oh, I'm running my business down now." Like, yeah, that just doesn't feel right after you've put all that energy in. And they say those things because they don't feel like they've got a choice. They think, well, I'm my business, therefore I haven't got anything to sell. But actually there's always something there. You might not be selling it for millions, but there's always something there. And there are so many options available to you. So I think for me, the big thing is right at the very beginning, understand what the possible options are so that you can actually just cogitate and think about them. And then as you build your business, usually a couple of those options will just become crystal clear as appropriate for you. Some of them won't be appropriate at all. You can, you know, if we had 20 different options, then we'd literally say, okay, out of the 20, we can eliminate 2/3 of them, for example. But of whatever's left, generally 80% of your exit journey, 80% of the things that you really need to do to get a successful exit will be the same. It's only the last 20% that's kind of different. So there's a whole raft of things that you can do that add resilience, give a bit more security to you, your management team, whoever's relying on you for your income, and boosts the value of your business.
Yeah.
So here's the one thing that I would like to say to every business owner.
All right, listen up, everybody. You
Okay.
better drop whatever you're doing, stop multitasking. This is it. So tune in right now, right here.
Roll those drums.
Yeah.
Okay. The more you work in your business, the less your business is worth. I'm going to say that again.
Amen.
The more you work in your business, the less your business is worth.
Yep.
The
I'm glad you said that.
singly most important task you have is
Get
getting
out of the
yourself
way.
out of the day-to-day.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. And I was going to actually, that was my next question. I was going to kind of go into that, but that's the more you work in your business, the less your business is worth. It's so true, because if you are the main player, if you're doing everything else because of whatever reason, you don't trust other people, or you don't, you just don't think about whatever it is, and you go down. I tell people all the time, whether it's talking about their health or you're the captain of the ship. And if you're controlling the ship and you go down, the whole ship goes down. So
Yeah.
that you need to have commanders, you need to have lieutenants, you need to have all these people on your ship that are doing the work that you can trust, that if you step away for something more urgent or, whatever to, push the army forward, push your group forward, the ship's still going to run.
Yeah.
And I think we can't hit on this more, because so many people, they grow their business, but then they're still the business, and they don't have they're basically trading a 9 to 5 for a 24/7.
Yes.
Like, they're not getting out of it to build what they want. They have the idea of like, hey, I want to build this to have freedom, but they never get to that point, and it end up, too much for them, and they give up because they don't understand the scale and to distribute the work to other people who are, one, they're going to be better than you in those positions.
Yeah.
And so things are just going to be better. So I'm glad you said that. So yeah, dive into that and how we can plan, getting out of the business, out of the way of the growth and everything.
For me, there are always 7 questions that I ask every single business owner, and they point towards the key things that you need to do. So one is, you need to have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And having a plan doesn't mean sticking it in the drawer once you've done it. It means actually having a plan that's an active plan, not a 96-page graduate dissertation, a 2-page, this is what my goals are and this is what I'm going to do right now. Have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Have some processes, so that if you do something more than once, write it down, make it into a process, develop a checklist if it's a complicated thing. If even people who provide bespoke services, your process is your checklist to make sure that you've not missed anything. Get the right people in, because if you've got people and processes, you can get the right people doing the right thing. If you've got a plan and you share it with the people, you've got the right people doing the right thing for the right reason.
Yep.
They're all pointing in the right direction. Most people are surprised that a 4th thing I say is about cash flow, because I'm an accountant, that was my first training once I came out of the Navy. So understand your cash flow. Like any business owner who says, oh, I don't do numbers, or, oh, I was rubbish at maths at school, get out of business, because you don't belong in business if you don't do numbers.
Yeah. That's one of the biggest things that I've had to learn, because that was me. That was like, man, I'm terrible at math. I don't like numbers. My wife is, so thank goodness that I have her to help me, because I'm learning. But that's a huge point right there. That's something I really had to be learning, was the numbers.
So there's 2 things around numbers. One is cash flow. And that is really understanding that the lifeblood of your business is the flow of cash through it. And then know your numbers, because you can understand cash flow to a certain extent, but if you don't know your numbers and you haven't got the right margin, etc. Those are the 5 biggies that are from a business perspective.
Yeah.
And here's the 2 things that are from the business owner perspective. What relationship do you have with your business? What relationship do you have with these 5 things? If you're so embedded in it that the business can't run without you, then all of this stuff ain't going to help you. So have a relationship with your business where your business is not your baby. Your babies are your babies. Okay? Your kids are your babies.
Yep.
Your business is a collection of people who are helping you leverage your wealth, and it's all a legal transaction.
Yep.
So there is culture there, but the business itself is just a pack of paper and digital zeros and ones. So, okay, so that's first thing is what relationship do you have? And be clear about how you manage that relationship, because it needs to be separate. And then the second thing is, based on the relationship that you have with your business and how you manage these 5 biggies, what impact does that have on your family? Make yourself miserable, that's okay.
Yeah.
You're choosing that.
Yeah.
But if you make everyone else around you miserable, trust me, if you're making your family miserable, you're making your people miserable. So maybe not everybody belongs in as life as a business owner.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I've heard it said, like, sometimes, like, it's okay to be the partner, you know, to be someone in the business and bring your strengths and just support than being the one starting it, because it is a different ball game. And that's okay. It's okay not to be the one starting, but to be the support that makes it grow. So that's a great point there for sure. And I think also so I have an example of kind of like the scaling part and finding the right people. So locally there's a business, and I won't say what it is, of course. They're doing well. I mean, they're a national chain, known. So I guess not local. It started local, but like I've had an inside look at how they kind of run things and the back office, and the owners of the business are still hands-on doing things and like in the office. And I'm like, you've been around like 20 something years, 20 years. Like, why are you still in here putting out fires and doing actions? And then it clicks. I see their lifestyle and I see how long they've had that lifestyle. They did lifestyle creep way too soon. So then they couldn't invest back into the business to grow that infrastructure and grow this plan. And it like is all clicking in my mind. I see it and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I don't want to be that. And so it's so important because they're running around like, sure, they still, you know, they live comfortably, they travel and things like that, but they're still so involved. And I'm like, it's you know, and they're not paying people the best, and they could be so much bigger.
Yeah, and that is it. I have a past client, and they've been running their business for 30 years. Okay, and they started it from scratch. Brilliant idea, fantastic product.
Yeah.
And then what happens is they grow to their business to a point where they're outside of their span of control. So then what they do is they go, okay, we're going to break through that and go to the next level of scale. And then they've employed an MD and so a managing director to come in and run it for them because it's beyond this. But of course, what they do is they keep cutting across him. And he gets so fed up of them micromanaging it, he then leaves. Well, they then bring the business down and consolidate themselves, and then they grow it again, and then they get so 6 managing directors in 6 years later. They wonder why they've been oscillating like this, and their business has never actually achieved a valuation of higher than
it's not a business, it's a job still. And that's huge. And we are our biggest obstacle when building a business. If we can't get out of the way, then it's just going to be a job. And Anthony's tuning in. He's got a great question I'm going to pull up here about this, because a lot of people, you know, they're bootstrapping, they're solopreneurs, they're starting out. So Anthony asked about the wallet, about that wallet. When do you outsource your work to step back in business? A great question, Anthony. I appreciate you hopping on there and asking that. So how can we take those steps? Because, you know, obviously we have to have money to live off of and provide, but then we get to the point where, you know, we need to outsource. So how do people go about those steps?
Okay, so and it's a toughie because I've been there before myself. So because you want to have the income, but your income isn't capped unless you then start to do something to increase your capacity. So I always think of, you have 3 jobs in your business: getting and keeping customers. That's the marketing, the selling, and the delivery. Staying legal, and making getting and keeping customers or staying legal more efficient. So getting and keeping customers, staying legal, or efficiency. Now, when you've gotten caught your customers and you're staying legal, but you start to expand, then you're now got to get into efficiency mode. And usually efficiency mode is you are going to take a slightly step back because you've got to find some space for this.
Yep.
So think about all the tasks that you've got on your task list and work out which is the one that you can get help with at the lowest possible cost. And I'll give you a clue. It's usually your bookkeeping that's the first to go.
Yeah.
So the last thing that you feel like you should let go of, it's the first thing you should let go of.
Mm-hmm.
If you can pay a bookkeeper, I know what the going rate in the States is these days, but like you can outsource this to the Philippines.
Right. Yep.
Or you can pay locally, but I guarantee you, if you're spending 10 hours on your bookkeeping in the evenings and the weekends, get that time back and pay someone a couple of hours to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just about process and communication. So first thing is your finance. Second thing is your marketing. Here's the thing again, there will be 1,000,001 people who will be coming up to you saying, I run a marketing agency and I can do marketing for you. And then you'll say, well, what do you do and how much you cost? And they'll go, there's so many thousands of dollars per month and I will do this post and that post for you. And then no, do not deal with any marketing company who actually says, for this money, I will do these transactions for you. You want to engage with a marketing company that says, okay, let me understand your business and let me understand what a good return on investment looks like. Because then the marketing company will be doing things for you that give you a return and engaging in someone like that. And it's a proper investment of time and you're going to kiss a lot of frogs. It's because you need to get the customers so that you can deliver. And at the same time as you're going to be getting some marketing done that you don't need to do the marketing every day, you then probably need to start thinking about, okay, who else can deliver this for me? And so I've done these in the order. So the finance, you'll feel like you don't want to let it go, but you have to. The marketing, you will want to let go mostly, but it will be the hardest thing to actually get someone acting in the right way for you.
Yeah.
And then finally, it's actually sharing this delivery so that you can spend some time strategically. And that's the hardest person to find, because you've got to find someone who comes in at your level and actually start going with it, and delivering services to clients that you fought hard for.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you're not bringing the client in, when your marketing people are bringing the client in, then you're divorcing I'm bringing the client in, therefore it's my personal relationship, therefore I have to do that.
Yeah.
When the marketing person comes in, it's your company and your brand that's delivering, and they don't care. Mostly the customer won't care whether it's you or whether it's just someone in your team, because they won't know any different.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, once you get through that, and it is properly like, there's an Ironman in Hawaii, I think it's the most famous one, where you swim 2 miles in, and they always say it's shark-infested waters.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is your shark-infested swim, because it's literally, you go through this about 3 or 4 times in your business career, and at the startup phase, when you're just getting to build up some capacity, it's then. And then when you're at the scale up stage, you go through another round then, because sometimes you have to get rid of people that have been very loyal, but they're not the right people to take you to the next level.
Yep.
There'll always be those times where you feel like you're swimming in shark-infested water. But you've got a choice. You can stay where you are on dry land, or you can move forward to another stage in your business. And it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's your life. And you choose. And if you're happy being on your own and doing everything and sitting within a smaller business and you're building a lifestyle around that, don't let anybody guilt you into thinking that that's the wrong thing. Because if it's the right thing for you and it makes you really happy, then it's the right thing.
No, that's a good point.
Definitely don't make yourself miserable by doing what you think everyone should have. You should be doing.
Know where you want to go with it. Know kind of the end goal, and then you'll realize, okay, hey, I can't be the one doing it, or hey, yeah, I can I can do this and I'm happy and it does what I needed to do. But I think these are great points. So I appreciate you sharing. Anthony said, thank you, Christine, for the information. I'll definitely look into everything. So again, Anthony, thanks for tuning in. Shane, Michael, thanks for tuning in. But yeah, kind of last question for you before we kind of wrap up. Well, not last question, but the last one based on succession and growing. And, when you're on this plan to exit, building this, like we talked about, is it good to start kind of with the freelancing for outsource and then eventually be able to get into employees, or is it better to always do kind of the outsource, like contracted people? Like, is there a difference? Does it matter?
It depends entirely on what type of business that you want.
Yeah.
And I mean, I started out with freelancers in some of my businesses and stayed with freelancers. Other ones of my businesses, I've had no choice but to employ in-house people, but I had the backing and the investment, I had the money banked and specifically for doing that one thing. So it's define your business model, define what the investment is, decide whether you've got the cash or not. If you're bootstrapping, you're going to be doing freelancing. But remember that nobody can build anything at scale just from freelancers. At some point, you're going to have in-house staff. And it's just a matter of the when, not the if. If you're going to build something to scale.
Because employees open up, people think employees, okay, I'll give them this much per month, but there's more to it, right? So there's a little bit more complexity in what you're paying and the money going out. It costs a little bit more to have an employee than, of course, a freelancer.
Yeah, well, you're paying for if you're employing someone in your business, you're paying them to do a whole role. And it doesn't matter how many hours you're paying them, whether they're part-time or full-time. I mean, here in the UK, you have slightly more rights if you're a full-time employee. So there's certain cut-offs, but you have legal rights, and then there's legal obligations around employment, and especially around paying things like social taxes and employment taxes. So, but I always think of, no matter who you employ or how you employ them, everybody should be giving you a return on their investment. And it's your job to figure out what that return is. And no matter who you employ, so with freelancers, you're probably going to employ people at a high skill point straight away because you need them to be running straight away. With an employee, you might want to bring them in slightly more junior and train them in your way. There's a training cost, so which is an investment. And here's a good quote there's a couple of quotes that I like from Richard Branson. Most of the time, I think he's a bit of a loon, but he does say, I mean, when he speaks common sense, he really speaks common sense. So one is, never take your eyes off the cash flow; it's the lifeblood of your business. And the second one is, and this is really valuable, train your staff so that they can leave your business. Treat them so that they don't want to. So you got to give them all the training that you can. It's a proper investment, and if you've got the right culture, they'll stay.
I think that's huge, and I've heard that quote too before, that second one, and it's so true because, and I've heard it said differently too. Like, it said about management talking about their employees. Hey, why are we doing all this training? Why are we helping them better? Because what if we train them and they leave because they're better? And the boss says, well, what if we don't train them and they stay?
Yes,
they're not improving, and so it's not. So I love that quote, and it's so true. Feed into your people. But thank you for kind of diving into that and what that looks like. It's been a great conversation about exit planning, succession planning, and scaling, even how those steps affect all of that, the outcome of the business. So again, Christine, we appreciate you. Everyone, make sure you get connected with Christine. Where's the best place people can find you, Christine?
So my website is businessmentoruk.com, even though I mentor clients across the globe. And but also catch me on LinkedIn. It's Christine Nicholson. You'll see me because I'm the one that says multi-award winning business mentor. And also, if you're interested in any of my books, and I write extensively about what we've just spoken about, then you can go and find me on Amazon. And my first book was 5-Minute Finance. So anybody who does the whole, I don't do numbers, go and check out 5-Minute Finance, because it was written for one of my clients, which is why I ended up publishing it, because it totally focuses on having a really good relationship with the numbers in your business.
Awesome.
And if you find that book, you'll see also all of my other books.
That's fantastic. Well, yeah, everyone, make sure you go get connected with Christine, check out her books. And if you need a succession plan or getting started in that, make sure you reach out to her. She puts out a lot of great information. So again, Christine, thank you so much for being on Elevate Your Brand today.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. And make sure if you're watching this live or on replay, share it with those in your community on social media that are maybe starting a business or have the idea to get this information out there. Because if you do that, we can help a lot more people succeed and grow and elevate their brand. So until next time, guys, go out there and make a difference.